Okay, we're on assignment number 2. This assignment is about compositing. You probably have heard that word in a number of contexts before, but in Photoshop and other image editing software packages and video packages also, it simply means bringing multiple images together. So you're going to be opening multiple files and pulling them together into one and creating what we call a composite, an image made up of multiple images that you brought together. This will require that, yes, you use selections and more importantly, layers. So a lot of what you're going to get out of this assignment is more practice using layers in a more complex way. Doesn't mean it's a complex assignment, but just a little bit more layer experience for you. The first assignment and this assignment are both exercises, and by that I simply mean I'm not asking you to be artists to do these. I want you to learn the tools and how they work more for these assignments than to get very artistic, because we're just starting out and it's more important that you learn where the tools are, how they work, and the mechanics of it at this point. And I'll be grading you pretty easily as far as the visual look of your assignment. Now, if you go nuts and do a beautiful composition, I'm probably going to pat you on the back and give you a nice little note when you turn it in. And I would love for you to do that if you feel capable. But for those of you, again, who are just beginning, and that's most of you, don't worry about the artistic nature of this or making accurate selections and those sorts of things. The requirements for this assignment are going to be pretty clear, and I'm going to really just be paying more attention to the structural nature. Did you get the number of layers correctly, or did you turn them in as a layered document? Is it the right size? Is it the right resolution? I want to make sure you pay attention to those details, and that's a bigger part of your grade on this assignment. So let's look at the assignment, and I have the Canvas page up. The links I haven't plugged in yet for this video because I haven't recorded the video yet, but it will be when you're watching this. So let's look and see what your requirements actually are. So at the top of all of the assignment pages, there is something called specifications, and this is important. And so it'll tell you what size, what resolution, which mode. We haven't talked about modes yet, but that's just the way the digital information is arranged. In this case, RGB is the standard mode of operation in Photoshop. So it should be, your computer should all have this set at RGB automatically. .psd is the file extension name for Photoshop native file format, and so it's going to be a Photoshop file, and you're going to have at least 5 layers. If you want to get carried away, you can have more layers than that. Some of you have already done a lot of extra stuff on your assignments here, but so I know some of you are at least intermediate users out there, but at least 5 layers, and that's plenty to do what you need to do for this assignment. All right, and here is the basic things that we're going to be talking about and that I want you to pay attention to. All right, we're going to be talking a little bit about concept and theme here too, because I want you to find images somewhere, probably online, but if you have your own images, you can use them too. And a lot of you take pictures with your phones and you have your favorite subject matter. I want you to choose a subject matter for your images that inspires you. All right. So if you spend a lot of time on the internet and you just love kitties, then go out there and put like kitties all together. Get a bunch of images of kitties. You're also going to be using a type layer. And so putting a little bit of text on this, and that word or words that you use to put on needs to be consistent with your theme. So if you do put a bunch of little kitties on your image, then you might put the word kitties on there. All right, this is just a way of making it a little bit more entertaining for you, and you can get a little bit carried away and get as crazy as you want with it. But again, I recommend strongly that you find something that you're passionate about. I'm passionate about cycling. I might pull up some cycling images. I don't know. We'll see. And so let's see what we can do here. Now, there are instructions here that are not terribly complete, but this is basically what I'm going to be going over as far as building this assignment. In Canvas, the instructions are here, but on the video, it's going to be a lot more complete. So I recommend you just do the usual, play the video and follow along as as I do on the video, and that's going to be pretty simple for you, I think. I hope, as long as I do a good video here, I guess. All right. So if we scroll down there, I only put one example because I think it would probably make sense to you. So this person chose the word beans and put a picture of, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with Mr. Bean, but you better look him up if you're not, and a piece of toast with beans on it, and beans in the background, and the word beans. All right, so this was pretty humorous, so I thought I'd put this one on as an example, but it can literally be anything. The size on this is not exactly the same size as what we listed up here at the top, 8 by 10. I'm not super picky about that, but it's good to be able to set a specific size for a document in Photoshop, and that's really my goal. As we get into the other assignments, I'm going to let you have some flexibility as far as the size and proportions of your images are concerned. All right, so that's about it. Let's look and see what we can do. So what's the first step? The first step is to figure out what your concept is, or what your topic or theme is. And I mentioned to you that I might want to do some cycling images, and I have some posted all over everywhere. I'm going to go into, let's go here to Google and go to my Google Drive. And I've got a ton of stuff here, and I can look through some of these. Let's see here. Let's go to, this was a criterium race in Lodi that I took pictures at. So go online if you want to do something really simple. And say if you wanted to do kitties or puppies or something touchy-feely like that, just type in kitties in a search window in Google. I don't really like these that much. Let's back up. I don't want to take too much time looking, but I want you to take quite a bit of time looking, frankly. So when we get going in this, further into the oh, these look pretty good. Further into the semester, I want you to spend a lot of time with the images and pick carefully, and you're going to have a little bit better idea. Let's see here. All right, so I went out and found those images on my Google Drive, but I think that the best thing you can do is probably just do a word search on Google and find images. Now, do I want you to pay attention to the resolution of those images? Yeah, it might be a good idea. Now, I'm not going to be super picky about it this time around, so I'm not going to go over that, but later on we will, how to go online and find images that are of decent resolution, because right now some of you don't really have an idea of what a decent resolution is, and we will be going over that. So really, I don't want you to be worrying about the image quality unless you know what you're doing here, okay? So this is more about just experiencing bringing images together and putting them in layers. It's really that simple. That's really all you're going to be graded on. So if you follow the, if you do an 8 by 10, if you do 150 pixels per inch, and it's in RGB mode, which it should be because you're not going to change it, PSD with 5 layers, the images all tie together with a theme, and there's a word or words on that image in a text layer, you're going to get 100%. It's going to be that simple, all right? Follow these instructions. This, under specifications, with the exception of your theme and your text layer, are what you're going to be graded on, all right? So I don't have a rubric on this, but this is pretty much it. If you do more than that, I'll be really, really happy, but I'm not going to require it. So let's go ahead and open up Photoshop and start working on this. All right, so I found my images. They're ready to go. I have them in one folder on the desktop, and that's what I recommend, that you put all your assets together in one folder and label it so you'll know where it is. And I'm going to go down here to my Photoshop, and we're going to open that up. And I'm going to go to File, and there's 2 ways you can start this. Now, you know this is supposed to be an 8 by 10 File, right? You can either open up an image and resize it with your crop tool, or you can go to New and just type in, I'm going to change this to inches, and we're going to go to, by the way, the orientation can be portrait or landscape. So maybe we want to go to the width of 10 and the height of 8, doesn't really matter which. And go back in and look at the resolution, but 150 pixels per inch. So here is how I want you to have it set up. If you should open up a new image and just start with an image instead of a blank canvas like I'm doing here, you're simply going to crop the image to 8 by 10 at 150 exactly the same way that you did with the last assignment, resizing your image. All right, so the process is the same. You can go back in and look at that video if you need to brush up on that. All right, and I'm going to click the Create button. Right now, our color is going to be white for our canvas. Let's look and see. Or not, actually. I'm not sure why that went gray, but it doesn't matter. I'm not using this. By the way, if I wanted to change the color on this, I could go back in and look at it, but another way that you can change this, and I'm going to show you this in the toolbar over here. Down at the bottom there are two little squares, and one of the last assignments I was using gray back here, which is why this was gray. The little tiny squares right above this are the default colors, and I'm going to click on that. And by default, we have what's called our foreground color is black and our background color is white. This is, the model they're using is black ink on a white background. All right. If you were to go up to my Edit pull-down menu, you can go to a Fill command. And you can fill with foreground or background color. All right. I'm going to just say cancel on this, and you can fill, it's fine. But you can also go to Alt-Delete or Control-Delete. Control-Delete will fill with your background color. Alt-Delete will fill with your foreground color. I'm going to go to Control-Delete because I want to make that white. Does it matter for this assignment? No, but I just wanted to show you that. That's not part of our assignment there, but it's a cool thing to know about. All right, so there's some cool keystrokes you might want to remember. But just remember that the Fill command is under the Edit pull-down menu. Then I'm going to go to File again, and I'm going to open. Now remember that for a lot of you, these windows are going to be tabbed at the top of the screen. All right, so you can go into your Edit and pull down to your Preferences and go to your workspace and uncheck Documents Open in Tabs here and enable Floating Document Window, and that will undo that. All right, so if you get confused when you start opening these, remember that you just have to grab these tabs and pull them down if you don't have those preferences set that way. You can't see more than one image at a time. And so let's go ahead now and go to File, Open, and I'm going to navigate to the desktop and go to my bike images. And in this window, I like to go in and set my icons to extra large. So what I want to do is maybe find an image that I want to use for my background image. And I've got a couple that might work for me. So I would start with what you want to be for your overall background. And I want something that's pretty scenic. This one's very cool because the bicyclists in the image are very small. There's another one that might work. I don't really like that one. I think I'm going to do this one, all right? And I'm going to click Open. Now, if you have your default settings on your preferences the way they are, this just showed up as a tab and it covers up the other one. So grab a hold of that tab and pull it down. I want to show you a couple of ways of putting one image in with another image. I'm going to size these, both of these document windows, so I can see both of them. And I'm going to use my scrubby zoom and we're going to move over. All right, so I want to get this image over here. And there's a couple of ways that I can do that. The easiest way of doing it is to go here to the Move tool at the top of the toolbar, go over to one image, make sure this is highlighted. I'm going to click right in the middle of this image and hold, and drag it over and drop. Now, this image is higher resolution than the 150 over here. So only part of this is showing. I can get rid of this one now. Let's open up the Layers palette. I want maybe have that open right from the get-go, and you can see that it's there. It's just really, really big. We're going to close that image because we don't need it anymore. Let's move our Layers palette over, and what I want to do is go to my zoom tool, the bottom of the toolbar, click in the middle of my window. Right now, scrubby zoom is on at the top, so I can click and drag and zoom out on this. And then I want to go to a really, really important tool for you to know about. And that is what's called a transformer, in this case, free transform. It's going to allow us to scale this image, right? And that is located under the Edit pull-down menu. I can go down to Free Transform and click on that. Control T is the keystroke on that. It's well worth remembering that. Write it down. You'll use it a lot. So if I go to Free Transform, all of a sudden this marquee shows up clear out in the gray area, which is why we zoomed out, because this is really large. And this is going to allow us to grab a hold of the side or corner handles and scale that down to size. All right? It's much better to start with an image that's too big and have to scale it down than it is to start with something small and scale up. But we can do either way. And I want to click on the corner handle here, and I am going to move this at a diagonal. And this is by default set to maintain the aspect ratio. What the heck is aspect ratio? And I can click inside that marquee and move this around. Aspect ratio is the ratio of height to width of that image. And it's really important that you understand that that must be maintained unless you have some compelling reason to distort it. If I grab a hold of these side handles and move them, you're still going to have that aspect ratio staying the same. Earlier versions of Photoshop did not do this, and we ended up with a lot of distorted images. If you want to distort this image, you can hold your shift key down and distort the image. Notice that only one axis is moving, and these guys on their bikes are getting smashed flat. That's a distorted aspect ratio, and I do not want you to do that. Control Z to undo. All right, so make sure you maintain your aspect ratio. That's something that I'm pretty picky about. But I want to try and frame this. Maybe I'll make this a little bit larger. And when I get it where I want it, it's still bigger than this screen, but some of it's going to have to be cut off. And I'm going to hit the Enter key on the keyboard. Then I can zoom in and see what's going on. I have two layers going on now. Here is my background. All right. And I'm just going to keep putting more images in like that. I'll show you a couple other ways of pulling these images in. All right, so let's go ahead now and go to File, Open, and let's find another image to put in. Maybe this one. Maybe I'll put it across the bottom. Another little one. All right. So here's another image. We can zoom back out with our scrubby zoom. We can resize our window by dragging on the lower left-hand corner of it. By the way, there are preferences that will cause the window or the frame to snap to the size of the window or size of the image when you're zooming. I don't happen to like that because I like the gray space around here. So, but that's up to you, and we'll talk about preferences later on. Now, I could go back to the move tool and click and hold and drag this over if I want, but I'm going to show you some other ways of doing that too. And by the way, I can grab a hold of the layer over here and drag it over. It'll do the same thing. But what would happen if I selected this or a portion of this and dragged it over? So for instance, I could go to a lasso tool and select a portion of this and then go to my move tool and pull it over. And I'm going to undo that with a Control Z because I want the whole image over there. I could actually go to a Control C and copy and go over here and say Control V to paste. All right, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is go to Control A, which is select all and copy, and then go to my image over here and activate it and paste. And you've all pasted new layers in before, and we have 3 layers now. I'm going to zoom out like I did the last time and go to a free transform. Remember the keystroke is Control T, and that is underneath the Edit pull-down menu. All right, but Control T is good to remember. And it's quite large here too. Let's go ahead and pull this one in. I might want to put them writing across the bottom of the image area. All right, so I'm going to drop that down and I'm going to hit Enter on this. All right, it's on top. We're hiding stuff, but I'm going to get all my images in there first, and then we'll start working on them. All right. So I have 2 images. I need 2 more. We need 4 images and a text layer for a total of 5 layers. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask some of this out right now, just so you can see what's going on before we start building. All right. You can pull all of your images in at one time and then turn your layers on and off to fiddle with them. But I'm going to show you an advanced technique right now that I hesitate showing you, but and you do not need to use this. So if I want, I can go to my rectangular marquee tool and just drag down on this and delete part of that image. So this is a selection area, and I need to make sure that I have my right layer selected. So I'm going to look at my layers palette and make sure I can turn that on and off. That's the one that's there. I don't need this portion of that image. And so I'm going to hit the delete key and delete part of it. All right. And I can leave it just like that if I want. For this assignment, you could have hard edges like that. That's great. But I want to start getting you used to using masks, even though that's not technically part of this assignment. Masks, or in this case, layer masks, are kind of an advanced technique, but they're the right technique to use, and you're going to want to start using them right away. And so that's why I'm going to show you. I want to be clear again. What I'm about to do is optional for you. All right? You can put 4 little images in little squares on a white background in a row and put a word at the bottom and still get 100 points out of this assignment. All right, so you don't need to mask. But in order to put a mask on here, and by the way, when we talk about masks in Photoshop, that word is used a lot and overused, I think. In this case, it's actually an accurate use. It allows me to paint on this with my paintbrush tool, which we'll look at, and hide pixels or bring them back. So this is a non-destructive process, and it's very, very cool. It's a mask. In order to do that, you can do a couple of things. I can go up to my layer pull-down menu and go to layer mask and add a mask here. But I am not going to do that because I think that's a little bit more difficult, but it is there. We'll look at that later, but I'm going to make sure my proper layer is selected, and I'm going to go to the bottom of the layers palette, and the third icon from the left, if I let my cursor hover over it, it says add layer mask, and I'm going to do that. So if we zoom in and look at the layers palette now, there are 2 little icons on that layer now. All right, and one of them is white. This indicates a mask. If I want to change the colors on this image, I'm going to go over and click on the little icon of the image. If I want to mask the image, I have to activate that. So there's some selections that have to go on in here. But I'm going to leave it on the mask. And then here's the deal with layer mask. While you have that mask activated, and you go to any tool that draws and or paints, you can paint with, let's zoom in on this a little so we can see it. You can paint with black to mask and paint with white to bring it back. That's so counterintuitive, it's not even funny. But let's make sure we're on the brush tool. I'm going to go to my bracket keys on the keyboard, or I can right click in the window and pull my size up a little bit, but it's easier to use bracket keys on the keyboard because you can see the brush size moving around. But you can also, if I right click on this, it's up here at the top as well, pull my hardness, either really hard edges or soft edges for the brush. I want soft edges and I want a large brush. And then there is the opacity setting up here at the top. Right now it's set at 10%. That's going to dictate how much color is put down at a time on this. All right. Then I'm going to go over here to my background and foreground color. I'm going to click the little switch button right here, or swap button. That's going to put black back into my foreground color. So I have black in my foreground color now. I'm on a paintbrush that is large with a soft edge, and my opacity setting at the top is 10. And if I go back in here and paint, let's turn the bottom layer off so we can see this. I'm going to go up to 100% opacity. Now notice it just changed. I hit the 0 key on the keypad. If I hit 5, it's going to go to 50. If I hit 8, it's going to go to 80. Let's go back to 1, it'll go to 10. 0, it'll go to 100. I could go over here and move this slider, or I can go to the word opacity and slide on it this way. But it's much easier just to hit a key on the keypad. I need to deselect that before I do that. And again, 0 would take you back to 100%. So now I can just mask this off. Now I'm not throwing these pixels away. I am hiding them. If I don't like that, I can go back to white in my foreground color. By the way, the keystroke to switch or to swap is X key on the keyboard, or you can click these little arrows over here and I can bring it back. All right, that's all there is to it. It's counterintuitive to talk about painting with black and white to take away and add, but that's the way it works. All right, and so let's go ahead and hide that. So I have a nice blend now. All right, and I can go back in and adjust if I want. By the way, remember that if you go to the Move tool and you have multiple layers here, I can click on this layer and I can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to shift that if I want to. All right. So we have two layers. I have a layer mask on there. Let me repeat, the layer masks are optional. Let's open up another image now. I need to bring two more in. All right, so let's go here to open and find another one to put in. I got two of the same one there, it looks like. Here is some very determined writers. I'm going to go to open on them. And let's just, for the sake of experience, go to my Move tool, go to the Layers palette, grab a hold of this layer and drag it over. Does the same thing. Let's get rid of that one now. We're in essence just making a copy when we pull it over into a new file. Go to my Zoom tool, click to the left with my scrubby zoom on, T, keystroke on the keyboard for free transform, and that is also, remember, under the Edit pull-down menu. And I can scale this. Now, I'm going to drag this out of the way. I don't know if I want all of these guys here or not. I might want to scale them down a little bit. So let's pull these down. And I just want wheels back there. I might want to do something crazy and put them at an angle. Let's try that. All right. I don't know what this is going to look like, but we're going to. I'm getting a little bit arty here. Hit Enter or the check mark at the top of the application window to stick that down. And I'm going to go ahead and put a mask on this. Remember, you don't have to, but I'm going to click Mask. It'd be nice for you guys to play with the layer masks. Now there's a mask on layer 3 there, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to go to a paintbrush with black here. And remember, that's going to allow me to erase and blend. Here's another thing that I would really like you to experiment with. These layers are in order. And remember that layers are just like transparencies or paper stacked one on top of the other. The ones at the top cover the ones beneath them. They supersede the ones below. That means that if I want these guys to be in front, I'm going to have to move this layer or drag these layers around. How do you do that? You go to your Move tool and you simply move them. So if I go to this layer and drop it down at the bottom, let's pull it down here below that. Now notice that the line between these two is changing. It's turning highlighted. It's blue in this case. All right, so now they're in front. All right, that's what I want. If I wanted to delete a little bit more on my writers layer here, it's kind of cool because this guy right here is the same as this guy here, and this guy right here is the same as that guy there. They're all in the same position. How weird is that? But let's go to the layer mask on the top layer now. We need to be careful where we are. Notice there's some black areas on the layer mask that are showing up now. Let's go ahead and go into the paintbrush again. I'm on the layer that has these guys on it now, and I could go in and not paint with black. I'm on the wrong part of that layer. I'm going to Control Z to undo. I need to go to the mask area, and I could bring this guy's wheel back down in if I want. Oh, don't like that. And by the way, I'm hitting my X key to go between black and white with the mask here. All right, so we got a little bit of overlap going. That looks kind of dopey, but just wanted to get you the idea. Now, I don't like how this is covering up my guys over on the street over here. So I'm going to go back to that layer. It's really hard to see these little icons, but you can see them. I'm going to make sure I go to that layer, go to my Move tool, and I'm going to nudge them over. By the way, for each of these layers, there is an opacity setting up here at the top of the layers palette. And so let's go here and pull the opacity down. I can make these guys transparent if I want. They're ghost writers now. Ooh. Now, I don't really like what's going on there. I'm going to go to my zoom tool again. Or excuse my move. I'm going to move these guys over a little bit. I'm going to get rid of this guy. He's a friend of mine, and I don't really want to delete him in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to anyway because he's not fitting into my composition well. That's my fault because I actually took the picture, but let's go ahead and go back to 100% on this layer. I'm going to go to the layer mask over here and go to black at 100% up here at the top, and we're going to take him out. I am going to take him out. And then I'm going to go back to my other layer and pull this back. Pull these guys back in. Getting a hard edge there that I don't like. Shouldn't have deleted that section earlier. All right. I think that looks a little bit better. Now I am getting fairly artistic with this. You don't need to. You really truly do not. Oops, wrong color. Painting with white instead of black. And I might want to actually fade their heads out a little bit. So I'm going to go to 10% in opacity and just click slowly. And then I'm going to sort of fade them out a little bit, just so it blends a little bit better. I feel like I'm doing a movie poster or something. Anyway, so I have 3 images now, and let's put one more in. File open. What other image do I want to put in? Let's put a happy image in. And let's go to the move tool. We're going to pop her in over there. She's big. Let's get rid of that. And again, I'm going to zoom out with my zoom tool, Control T to free transform. And maybe I want to leave her large. She's a little bit big. Typically when I'm doing all of this, I will figure out what elements are the most important in a composition that I'm doing. And I will make the ones that are more important a little bit larger. And this isn't necessarily the case because it's just an exercise. And let's say OK on this. I'm going to put a mask on her too. Notice she's going off the edge. I think that's kind of nice to not see the entire image. Let's go ahead and go back in with black in my foreground color. And go with 100%. Now if you want, you could select this very, very carefully and go around the edges. And I mean, if you wanted to use your lasso tool, here's a cool thing you can do. I'm going to hold my Alt key down because remember with the lasso tool that will make it into like a polygon lasso. And I'm going very, very quickly on this. Every time I click, I'm getting a little anchor point. And I'm not going to grade you on the overall accuracy of your selections, but if you just want to get nuts with this, you certainly can. And if you want to simply make a selection like this and hit the delete key and just delete these pixels, you can without doing the mask, for those of you that don't want to use masks, which would simply be make sure you're on the right layer, and you can simply hit the delete key and it will delete to transparency. And it's not a mask, it's just deleting to transparency. I'm going to mask it, but the fact of the matter is you can do some hard edge stuff on this if you want. Let me repeat, you do not need to do any of this. Pull 4 images together and put text on it, you're done. I just want to give you more so those of you who really want can start playing with this and get going a little bit faster on it, because I will be repeating all of this stuff virtually almost every lecture. All right, so you don't need to do what I'm doing here. All right, I am going to go down here to, oops, I'm on the wrong layer here again. Go to my layer mask again. Remember, you got to be on the portion of the layer that is a mask and do a fill on that, and Alt-Delete fill. That just fills with black, which is a mask. Another thing that you can do is just simply go here to your brush tool, right click and pull the hardness all the way up. Let's go small with it and zoom in. And I'm going to be on the mask, and I can just go in here and paint with the mask. And if I mess up, hit the X key on the keyboard or switch to white in your foreground color. If we turn these other layers off temporarily, you can see what's going on here a little bit better. This is all just a mask. And by the way, if you hold your shift key down with a paintbrush tool, you can control it a little bit better too. For those of you that are into using graphics tablets, it's a little easier to do some of this stuff with a graphics tablet than it is. If you're drawing and painting and you hold your shift key down, it will also constrain to perfect angles, which I don't really want to do. But remember that the shift key is always a constraint tool, a constrainment tool in a lot of different ways. Let's go with a larger brush now. Remember that I can just paint with white instead of black here and bring all of this back if I want. Oops, I just chopped their knuckles off. So I'm being a little sloppy with this, but let's back up a little bit. All right, I don't really like that. So I'm going to go to the layer mask on this, and I am going to do, actually let's try this. If I went to a fill command, and that's under edit fill, and filled with black on the mask, she is going to disappear. If I go now to my paintbrush with it larger and with a soft edge, because I want it to be a soft edge, it's up to you, and paint with white in my foreground color, she's going to come back. So maybe I'll have her floating in the sky. I don't know. Just bring part of her back in. Oops. Clean that up a little bit. All right, let's just say for the sake of argument, we like that. We have our 4 images. Now I need to put some text in. And I could put biking or something trite like that if I want in here, but I can also go to the text tool. Let's just put something in and click on the T. Now we have choices here. We have horizontal type tool, we have vertical type tool, and notice that we have vertical and horizontal, what they call type mask tools. This will allow us to type, and the letters, shapes of the letters are simply selections shaped that way. And we may use these later on, but I don't use them too often for some obvious reasons. There's easier ways of doing this. But let's go to the horizontal type tool. That's just a standard type tool. You can click an insertion point right here in the image area. I like to kind of define where this is. Notice that we have text attributes across the top now. So I'm going to click and drag, but you can just click, and I'm going to type in, let's see here. I might want to go with all caps on this. The fast kids, because that's how I look at them. These guys are the fast ones. I used to be a fast kid. I am no longer a fast kid. I am going to break this down a little bit. And if I want, I can select these letters and go up to the top of the window, and there's a little square, and I can click on it, and that will allow me to pick a color. That's done, and that's going to get you 100 points here. I'm going to do a little bit more with text here too. All right, so just want to give you a little more than you need. By the way, all the text attributes are over here too. So if I click and drag on this, oops, I just got an extra text layer. I'm going to go to Control-Z to undo. By the way, notice that the text layer showed up above the currently active layer, but we can move that to the top if we want. The text layer is indicated by a T in the square. That means it's an editable text or type layer. All right. So I want to make sure that's selected. I'm going to go back to my text tool, and we'll select it again. I'm going to click and drag. So these are just a text field like any other text field in a text editor. But what I want to show you is when this is selected, up here at the top, we have some choices that we can make. But this little square with the lines in it that looks like a piece of paper with text on it, if I click on it, this gives us some fairly advanced character attributes. So we can do some fairly cool stuff here. We have some minor stuff across the top, but we can go back up in here, and if I highlight the word Arial, which is the typeface we're using right now, and we just hit the up and down arrow keys on the keyboard, I can see the fonts as we go. And I don't want to look through all of these. I think I want something a little bit more bold, so let's scroll down. I don't want elephant. I don't want Gabriola. I have a lot of fonts on my computer. Let's keep going here. Let's go to impact. I know that's pretty bold. All right, and then we can go to our type size up here, our point size. And notice there's a slider I can use, but I can also simply just click on the T and drag. And this isn't fitting real well, so I'm going to grab that text box and put it back. All right, so play around with text if you want. Now the cool thing about Photoshop is that once we get some text in there, you can take this dialog box and do a free transform, Control T. And you can rotate it, and you can change it. You can stretch it out. And if I scale it, I can make it larger, and the point size is changing automatically on this. And I've got everything else at an angle. This dialog box is getting pretty damn big. That looks, that looks great. It's not great. It's okay, but it's not great. I think what I might want to do is go down a little bit with the that's better. Free transform again is what I'm using to change the size on this. Control T. All right, now let's say I don't like that color. All right, I am going to go up here to my character here. I can double click on my color, and I can go into the window and click somewhere and pick the color. Like I could make it green like her windbreaker if I want, or whatever color that is. Make it a lot brighter if I want to. Or I could pick like the blue over here, and then it's actually fading in. That looks kind of cool. Let's say okay on this. We can't really see this too well, but this is pretty much done. All right. I want to show you a little bit more. All right. Some of you are getting pretty nervous because I'm getting pretty advanced here. But if you go into your layers palette and leave this selected, this text layer, type layer selected, we have something called layer styles. And the icon for it at the bottom of the layers palette is FX. It used to be layer effects, and that's why it says FX. They've left it that way. Now it's layer styles and left it FX. So basic layer effects, I think, sounds better anyway. But what is this? If we click on it, there's a pull down menu, and I can go, for instance, to drop shadow. Anything that's floating on a layer like this, I can put this drop shadow on. These dialog boxes are quite complex. Right now, a drop shadow is selected, so I have the adjustments for a drop shadow, and I can change the distance and angle of the lighting. I can change the opacity of the shadow. I can change the spread of the shadow, softness of the shadow. I can also go here to stroke and add a stroke on this, which is just an outline. I can put the outline on the inside or the outside of that letter. I can make it thicker or fatter. I can click on the little color square here and pick a color from my image. I think it might be more appropriate maybe to click the yellow line color here. I don't know. Let's see what that looks like. I kind of like the green of her. I like that better. All right, so there's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do. This is pretty much done. All right, so I'm going to leave the background layer. So there's an extra layer there. You don't have to have that one, the white, but 1, 2, 3, 4 layers and a text layer. That's actually all I need. All right, then I'm going to go up and say File, Save As, and we're going to save it as a PSD file, and you're going to name it the usual way. I got all my cap locks are on. I don't like caps, so I'm going to redo that. And I named myself Brain. I think I'm going to leave it. One of my nicknames, because people misspell it all the time, including me evidently. And click the save button. Remember where you save it. I'm going to save mine to the desktop, and that is ready to turn in as a .psd, ready to submit in Canvas. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go up here and say File, Open, and I'm going to go back into my images and find another image. I'm going to look at the size of it by going to the pull-out menu at the bottom, and it's 7 by 10. All right, that's probably close enough for our purposes. But if we go to the crop tool like we did before and type in 8 by 10 at 150 pixels per inch and hit enter, then I know that's exactly the right size. For the purposes of this assignment, then I can go in and say open up another image, drag it across and drop it, go to a free transform, make it small, File, Open, choose a different one, pull that one over, free transform. I can't see my transformation marquee, so I need to do this. Drag a corner handle. Open another one. Drag it over, drop it. Wow, that's way big. We're going to put this one in the sky. Hit enter. We have 4 images. I'm going to go to my type tool. Type in bikes, hit enter. This is done and you'll get 100 points for it. All right, just wanted to point out that you can keep it really simple. Even with something simple like this, I could go back in now and go to my text layer and make at least make my bikes word a little bit larger. And I could maybe put some drop shadows on this. Notice that when you put a drop shadow on or an effect or layer style, there are some additional items on the layer. And if I want to change these, I just need to go to the word effects here and double click and it'll open up that dialog box again. All right, so you don't have to get carried away. It can be this simple. I did a lot of masking because I wanted to show you that, but you don't need to do it. Keep it simple if you're nervous with doing all those other ones, but other tools, but honestly they're fun to play with, so I'm recommending you try it. You can't go too far wrong. If you mask improperly, you're not going to get marked down. If I see 4 images and a text layer and it's the right size, you're home free. All right, that's all I need from you. All right, have fun with it and just experiment. Take some time and play around with some of these tools. You're going to get much better very quickly if you take some time other than just doing the assignment. All right, good luck.